Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, as I have recently I did a video on Major General Albert N. Stubblebine III. This is the general that really looked into the alternate reality and the metaphysics of taking a military officer or military personnel in general and using every capacity that they could. Now, we have weapons developers, we have tactics people. I'm not sure any of this has changed that much, except maybe some sophisticated weapons, which have reached a very high level. Interesting enough, the technology that's been actually out there now has equalized the military playing field. Technology has taken small groups with lack of numbers and made them into deadly adversaries. So the actual edge that the, quote, superpowers have over other armies is not that great anymore, which is interesting. Everything from drones to night fighting capacities, which always gave the Western people, or I should say the superpowers, actual edges, is now being cut down more and more, which is interesting because these technologies are now out there with many people. Iran has their own drones, so does Russia, so does everyone else, and these are deadly and effective tools in the battlefield. So it seems to me that using human potentials, if we can call it that, but using high-level consciousness to decipher military objectives, or for that matter, to reach higher levels of understanding for anything. This could be scientific breakthroughs, medical breakthroughs, and all the things that go with it. Now, he was the one that sponsored and was involved with, and even he states that he actually, and everybody's claimed that they wrote the remote viewing manual for the team that was working there. So he claims to have been a writer in it. He studied many aspects, was involved in personally in learning how to bend metal, particularly spoons and anything, and he did it himself. So, and demonstrated it to a lot of other people. So he thought that this was just amazing. He's also featured in the Men Who Stare at Goats film, a film I do recommend, even though it's a strange black comedy that's kind of confusing. And he was featured in there. I forget what they call him in the film, and made him look a little bit silly, which in interviews he stated he didn't really like, and needless to say. So he was portrayed fairly silly there, but that entire book was pretty silly, at least the first part of it, and the movie itself was even more. They made it into this basic comedy, and I don't think they really knew what to do with that film and thought if they made it, completely straight, that nobody would buy it. But it's quite fascinating, and as I said, I highly recommend that movie. Everybody should grab that and look at it. There's also the book by Ronson, The Men That Stare at Goats, which I have read, which, again, starts off kind of comical and fun and interesting and ends very depressing into what's going on. And it's one of the few books, if the only book that I've ever read, that at the end of it, I was hit by a giant negative energy, which just made me feel terrible. Very interesting. But it ended with the CIA actual experiments on people and the murder of one of the particular people there. Now, this book is very interesting. The General speaks intimate conversations with the dead. This is a channeling of General Stubblebine, who died in 2017, February 6th, in the United States, where he was hit kind of mysteriously. Of course, he was in his 80s or 86 or whatever it was. I'm not really sure of what that of his actual age, but he was getting up there. But apparently there was no history of any great problems, and he comes to the United States for some meetings and ends up getting very sick and dying. Now, his wife, I don't know if this is his first wife. She doesn't talk about his other wives. Must be other wives, I would think. She's relatively young. Rima E. Libo, and she is a medical doctor. Now, she's a Chilean doctor. That will play an important part here as we discuss all this. And Ralph Fucola, JD, which means that he is a lawyer, a judicial doctorate, I believe is what JD means. And this is kind of her contact. So what's interesting about this is the book goes into several things. First of all, she claims to have verified contact with him. One of the many books and research that is done, which is verified contacts with the, quote, dead, or those who have passed. This has been verified by many researchers, even in modern times, and this kind of research goes back about 150 years now, in terms of this kind of metaphysical research of spiritualism, speaking with the dead, etc. So this is very important. This is another book establishing that there's contact with those who have passed, and they do have some very potent information, and it's very fascinating. There's a researcher out of Arizona, I always forget her name, which has a series of books, and she was actually got funding for it and worked on it for about 5 years and has unequivocally proven contact with the dead. And they seem to be very excellent in helping with medical diagnoses. There's always a problem with communicating with dead. They don't like to do things like give you the lottery numbers and all that kind of stuff, unfortunately. So they're saying that the cause of death of the general was acute myocardial infarction, basically a heart attack, respiratory failures. He got septic. So basically it was a complete mess at the time he died. She was trying to treat him alternatively, and she was big into alternative medicine. And there is actually a organization started, I don't know if he was involved in it initially or not, but using certain health products. The Natural Solutions Foundation. And I don't know if he started it, but certainly his wife started it. Now, this book is terribly written, terribly put together, and only is really a brief understanding of this entire case. You can go to her website. I believe it's here in the back. GeneralBertSpeaks.com, and apparently there's 1,500 pages of conversations with him. Some of his information is interesting. He talks about consciousness and everything else, and how these things flow together. It's very similar to my concept, which is informational energetic fields, force energy physics, which talks about consciousness and other things. But it's very poorly written. It's hard to really understand what they're saying here. There is some very fascinating things in this book. And one of them is the fact that he was able to cure his wife of her going blind. He also changed her eye color to resemble his. She also claims that she got, which she doesn't detail in the book, information that completely confirmed to her that she was talking to her husband of 20-some years, whatever it is. That personal information was not revealed, which is, I find, disturbing, because I'd like to hear what was confirmed there, that she was so confirmed that she was actually speaking to him. Apparently, some psychic called her out of the blue, another very skeptical thing, saying that she had messages from the general, and this person gave her good information initially, and then it from there went into areas that were not correct. What are we supposed to make of that? But this is true with a lot of psychics. I mean, psychics are able to pick up certain things and then they are dry. Then they start to get into things that really don't make much sense, that they're kind of filling in the details to keep a client on the line, so to speak. Everybody's got to make a living. So it's very interesting. But she has verified on her driver's license. Now, here's a picture of her. And she has verified with her doctor that she had an eye change color, that she went from brown eyes to hazel eyes, which General Stubblebine had hazel eyes, etc. And as I said, she's Chilean. They were living in Chile. He came to the United States, and then this happened. You have to wonder sometimes when these things happen, are they using some sort of psychotronic weapons to kill people? And you would think that an 86-year-old or however old he was, a man, that they would just let them go. But they don't do that. They want to kill you at the end, because when you come out with these things, it happened to Mac, the famous, I think he was at Yale or Harvard, extraterrestrial researcher who they actually murdered on the London streets by running him down from a drunk driver. But apparently, she also states that there is no history of a change of color in eyes, which is not associated with immediate blindness. Now, sometimes the color of your eyes change, but that's because your eyes are basically going blind, and your whole eye structure changed. Well, she didn't go blind, and apparently, and it's a little confusing in the book, is that she was going blind, but he stopped that and cured her. So we have per her, not only did she make contact with this spirit, but the spirit was able to physically affect her and change her actual physical well-being, meaning the fact he cured her. Again, these are fascinating things that we're talking about the spirit world. Now, we got to understand that this falls into the category of ghosts and spirits, not interdimensional entities or extraterrestrials, which are physical entities, are their representatives from another physical planet. So we have to break all this down. I did do a video on that as well. And a person who's been involved with spirits and spirit research for over 40 years as an occult science researcher and a degree in the occult sciences that I have. All of these things I'm very well versed in, as well as with the more advanced other research areas of extraterrestrials and everything else, which I've been involved with as well. So it's all very exciting, these areas, but we do have to figure out what's going on with the spirit world, which we tend to overlook looking for physical aliens. But there certainly are dimensional entities which come from dimensions which are unlimited. There are physical extraterrestrials, and of course there's what we call ghosts or spirits of the dead, or in general. And of course, these have been documented for thousands of years. So it's quite fascinating when we move into all this stuff, that we're talking about physical changes that this spirit, this ghost, actually made to his wife by changing her eye colors and healing her of a condition. The problem is she had a condition which was she was going blind. That is one of the reasons your eye colors change, but apparently that condition was healed and the eyes still changed in color, and not because of disease, but apparently he was doing that to her directly. She was able to confirm several things or statements that she got from him directly through channeling him. She went through a lot of psychics, and then apparently she's channeling him directly. Certain phrases he used to say, and she has, as I said, over 1,500 pages of actual conversations with him. As I said, a lot of what he gives here, and supposedly he passed on, and I'll have to look at that, it's not in this book, some sort of free energy machine. Now, these things are irrefutable. They either work or not, but it could cost a lot of money to build one. We don't know. So these are the kind of things that are not gone into here in any detail. Um, um, so it gets a little confusing. So as I said, the whole book is very confusing. It's not really stated well. Almost pretty much a huge percentage of the book is dedicated to his contact with the Yellow Emperor and his activities with actual Chinese emperors and other things that he is connected with. And how these are important of the spiritual work he's doing today. But a lot of pages of that, very boring. I didn't find it interesting at all. I had very difficulties getting. Okay, he died on his 87th birthday. I didn't find it interesting. He talks about the Big Bang and so many other things, how the void out there created. This is not new, groundbreaking, or even very interesting, how he's come up where consciousness and how life comes from. A very sketchy, very badly put together. It's and the way it's explained is not very good. She gets into a lot of silly things here, like she thinks that he actually, when she went to China with all these revelations about China and his contact there and his big connection there with emperors and everything else, she believes that one of the terracotta warriors that were found there looks a lot like him. And let's see if I can find that picture. I don't think it looked a lot like him at all, and I'm not really sure what that was all about. But it was important to the general, apparently. But as I said, there's not there. But supposedly, here we go with the picture of that. Now, does that really look like him? I don't think it looks like him at all. And these are not very detailed statues that you see there anyway. Doesn't seem like there's anything similar to that. And of course, this is an Oriental face, and he is apparently a German Jew. So I don't see how the two mix too well with that. So we don't know, but again, this is very fascinating. There has been studies, and I always forget this person's name, but she was an Arizona researcher, and she has inexpensive books where she actually contacted the dead, got verified information, and did this in a large research study that she was able to get funded to come up with proof that there is contact with people who have passed, and they were able to get practical information from them. Now, his theories of consciousness and everything else, ultimately, I don't really care. If he has information about free energy, I certainly would like to see that. But as I said, this is kind of a very poorly put together, badly written book. She needed a good editor to put her back on track. It's really very uninteresting in general. With all this Chinese stuff in the back and the quantum, a lot of this is just I found to be very boring and uninteresting. One of the problems is I always try and look into the actual, who are people? And one of the problems is when you deal with Latin people, they're so steeped in mysticism. Not only is their entire life programmed through the fantasy world of Christian belief systems, they're fantasy stories that are all copied from others. They are very steeped in that, and that is mixed in with some very ancient Santeria practices, voodoo practices. When you put this stew together, you get people that have very strange thinking. I recently went through this with a guy that claimed to have been a big radionic guy, but really what he was, because he was from Venezuela, is that he was steeped in mysticism and had a bizarre healing connected to some sort of Christian bringing in spirits, and his whole life really revolves around, which I have great trouble dealing with people against the fiction of religion, regardless of what it is. So the problem when if you're a serious researcher and you steep yourself into silly mysticism, you end up producing nothing. And this person had no abilities, couldn't do anything, yet he claimed to have been able to cure everybody. Yet when he was given cases, he couldn't cure anything. Just another dead end that I've run into with all these people. So again, there's the, if you people, I don't know what's on there. There's a subscription. I'm probably going to subscribe to this and look at this more in depth, because this is a serious area. Can you get information from the quote dead that they can pass through? Now, there's no way to actually control this guy, which is good. I mean, they can kill you, run you down in the street, no matter what age you are, whatever they do. But once you're a spirit, this is channeled information and generally frowned upon. And as such, he could say anything he wants. So if he wants to tell people how to do higher level stuff, then certainly he could do it. Now, as I said, this guy was pretty personal. He did go out. Matter of fact, he met his wife here at a biofeedback convention. She is a medical MD, whatever that means. And so they did meet. So he was out doing this kind of research all the time at a very serious level. As he said, he perfected bending spoons and other things, and demonstrated this to other people in the military, which got him in trouble, apparently, because he wanted to show that, because the person he showed it to was another one of these nut job Christians who thought this was from the devil. The only people from the devil are the Christians, because they're only, Satanism and Christianity are inseparable. Basically, they're one and the same. Particularly, all of the things they do and the hatreds that they perpetrate under the name of the love God. But as I said, one of the problems, my opinion of her at this particular point, is she's steeped in mysticism. She's a medical MD. She's into alternative practices. She is selling a whole bunch of supplements. I'm assuming she's got a good, she's got a military pension that she took over from her husband, which should be quite nice. You got to remember, military officers are paid quite well in their pensions. They have benefits. They have medical benefits. They can go to the commissaries, or whatever they call those military bases, buy food and other items that are much less expensive and not taxed. So all the things that go with that are part of, so she has a lifestyle that can do it. Now, what is said in these other books, as I said, this is very badly written. There's very poor explanations of anything. But what I could piece together of this certainly is fascinating. We all have to look into that. What is this gaining information? Now, when we gain information from nondescript people or from unknown spirits, well, how trustworthy is that? But when these are actual figures of people who have passed, people that we know, unless they're lying to you, and this is another problem with the spirit world, is that they lie to you. So the whole idea, if we can connect them to a particular person, it means that we're talking to someone who was living in this reality, who is functioning here, who knows what's going on, and you can verify that by personal details. And apparently she was able to do that, but didn't give us enough information on that, which I really despise that, because I'd like to know how this was confirmed to her. Now, again, this is showing per her, and I don't know anybody else. And again, you have to cure other people. She was cured of what was apparently going to be blindness, and he was able to change her eye color to his. And again, this is verified by driver's license and passports, etc., that she shows here. She had brown eyes. She then had hazel eyes, which are the same color eyes that General Stubblebine had. So, I mean, very, very interesting that we have these physical effects that can be done from the spirit world, as well as bringing us information that normally would not be released. So this is very potent stuff. We're looking for answers. Science has failed. Government has failed. Religion has failed. Now, what we're going to need in the future is this entire advanced science, and that's what it is, investigating things that are difficult to investigate, and the brainwashed, corrupt research system, which is horribly corrupt. I don't know how many people know that, but I'm going to be doing another talk on that, and it's all over the YouTube as well. Just punch in scientific fraud, and you'll get hundreds of people talking about, who are connected to dumbademia, giving you examples of what was going on here. in terms of the fraud in science and how they make up everything just to get money and to further their careers. So here's another thing that we have to look at. We're in terrible times. Things are getting worse. We've destroyed the planet. We're running out of water. We're going to have more and more wars fighting over commodities like water and oil and all the things that go with that. We need to get answers now. And we're not getting them from dumbademia. We're not getting them from a lot of goofball other people. And certainly, religion has nothing to offer anybody. 4,000 years of religion has brought us nothing. No answers, no nothing. Certainly, science is a complete and total dry hole that is still working on 500-year information that they've gotten. Very few things have been discovered past what Newton discovered and what quantum physics discovered in the 1800s. That's how far quantum physics goes back. And all of it is just one rehash after another, as was done by Einstein, who just rewrote papers that were published many years before he published his. He was pushed to the forefront by a group of scientists to push their agenda for the future. So all of this is something that we have to fully understand of what's going on. So this kind of research is critical. And you have to wonder, can everybody do this? Can we contact our past relatives? Can we get information of a great nature from it? Well, per researchers, this seems to be something that can be done. It is not something that's all that difficult. So in terms of this book, I do not recommend people buying this book. There's not much in it. Of course, this will be made available to our Patreon members and our All Access members as part of your membership. We put this in our library, which you can then access. This you can get if you want to get it. This is, I bought this from Amazon. This is one of those print-on-demand books. It's fairly short. How many pages is this? About 132 pages. And there is some very fascinating information in here, but as a general book and what he explains consciousness and everything else, boring. And this whole, pretty much half the book about his Chinese connection to the Yellow Emperor and how this is so important. As I said, I found to be worthless. And I'm not sure what the connection is there. I had trouble getting through it. I had to skip through a lot. I have so much to read that if I come to something that seems to have little or no value, I generally just breeze through it very quickly or completely skip over it. But there is some very fascinating things. This is a case of actually curing somebody, actually changing them physically from the spirit world. Now, if you think about that, that is mind-screwing. So I hope you enjoyed it. Much more to come.